But for our kids, when we're sick,
Yes,
I think that
yes.
they're sometimes fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're
The
great
hard part,
teaching opportunity or learning.
yes.
It's a different kind of learning.
I mean, like
Oh
when
my
we're sick,
God.
I think the
Yeah.
kids enjoy the change of pace sometimes.
Yeah.
And that has also helped relieve the mom guilt because my kids are like, wait, so what are we going to do today?
Welcome to the Homeschool Perspective, where seasoned homeschooling moms share tips, insights, and resources to empower your homeschool journey. Welcome back to the Homeschool Perspective. Have you ever heard the old joke, what do you call a mom who is sick? Mom? Well, the reality is that the wonderful part of being a homeschool mom is that we get to be a part of all our children's lives. But when we aren't feeling the best, that wonderful part can be a bit more challenging. So, in today's episode, we are talking about how to manage homeschooling when you're sick. From simple adjustments to backup plans, we'll cover practical tips and strategies to keep things moving even on your roughest days. So, if you've ever wondered how to juggle it all when you're not feeling 100%, you're not alone, and this episode is for you. All right, guys, we've all been there, right? We have all been there, and some of us might be there right now or have been there this past week. Yeah. So, what is your first thought? Like when you wake up in the morning and you know that you aren't going to make it through the day, or you have that like nighttime visitor that wakes you up in the middle of the night saying, "Mommy," and you just know that sickness has entered the chat. What's your first thought?
Ooh, that nighttime mommy. The very unique, specific
Yeah.
nighttime mommy where you're like,
No.
plans are about to change for the next
Exactly.
couple of days. That one's rough. We have been in it, guys. We have had somebody extremely sick for the last 2 weeks. Tomorrow it'll be 2 weeks. We have just been
So
going
rough.
through it over here because, of course, somebody starts and then it just
It
keeps
snowballs.
rolling through all the humans.
At least your kids are good at sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, that wins. That was
Yeah,
big right there. That
seriously.
mic drop moment. That was awesome. My first thought though, and what I usually do, I mean, we have gone far past my plans for when someone gets sick because we're
Mm.
2 weeks in.
Mhm.
So that's like a whole nother conversation. But typically we know, when I set up our plans in the beginning of the year, I know what can be done independently, what can wait, and I have a general idea um, of what can be accomplished with minimal mom support. And I also build in lots of cushion. We do 3 terms, but I also know we can easily end in May or June. Like it's fine, we
Yeah.
just know that we need to take a day, we take a day. Um, but I don't, what about you guys? I have like a generalized idea of what we can do and what we can't do, and then that
Mhm.
cushion. But what about you guys? Do you have a more solid plan?
Well, my first thought when she said, what do you think first is, well, how old are the kids that we're talking about?
Mm.
With 8 kids, we have older kids, we have younger kids, we have kids with special needs. And so when all I had was young kids, it looked really different than now when my youngest is 7,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a
Yeah.
totally different ballpark if you've got a toddler who's throwing up all over you and a 6-year-old who's sitting next to you with a sauce pot and a 10-year-old who's old enough to run to the bathroom.
Right.
That's totally different than, hey, here's my 7, my 10, my 12-year-old, whatever. And they can read independently, they can follow directions. Are they sick? Am I sick? So we have all kinds of contingency plans in place
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that I don't actually think about. We just kind of roll out and do because they kind of grew and became habits. But if I'm thinking back to when we got started, what we started with was a sick day box. When mom is sick, this box comes out and it's all kinds of really cool special toys that never come out unless mom's sick. And so they can play with them for hours and hours and hours
Mhm.
and never want to stop. And I also always keep, and I tend to like fresh food. So this like feels so weird to suggest as a thing, but I keep easy like canned food or frozen meals in the freezer so I don't have to think about food. So the kids love like canned chicken and star soup or ramen noodles. And I'm like, no, like, no. But But when I'm sick, if I can't
Right.
handle being around food or something, I'm like, y'all, we're gonna do something really special today. You guys get to make lunch, and here's what you can choose between.
Mhm.
And they love it and they're so excited. So there's that kind of a thing. If we're all down for the count, we either give up the school day or we watch documentaries
Yeah.
or movies that are loosely adjacent to what we're studying in school. And then we talk about it and we do our best because it depends what kind of sick you are too.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different things. But I think that one thing that it probably took me like 8 or 9 years to give myself permission to do this of homeschooling. Sometimes you just take a sick day.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, we're just,
It
like,
took you that
unplugging.
long?
We're not
Just kidding.
it because not everybody would be sick at the same time, and I
Right.
felt like I was,
Yeah.
with a big family, and it goes through it could be, like, 3 months that we're
It's
sick,
hard.
but you have to realize that not every day is that bad.
Right.
So, on the
Yeah.
days that are that bad, we take a sick day. But I used to feel like I was doing the kid who wasn't sick a disservice,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Like, I was like, they were losing a healthy day or something. But now I know better, and I'm like, "Okay, y'all, if you're old enough to do school independently, go do your schoolwork.
Right.
If you're not, here's the sick day box."
Yep.
And I do it guilt free now because we school year round and we have such long breaks like throughout the year. We just grab a day here and there if we need it.
Yeah.
You know
And
what? I
that's
have to Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
Rach.
go ahead. Say what you're gonna
I was
say.
just gonna say, I'm like, the 6-day box also works for pregnancy too, but,
It
like,
does.
having that around.
Mhm.
And new
But,
babies.
Yep.
and new babies. But I completely agree with you and have the same thing, but I feel like I also, even though I know this, there's been moments in the last week where I'm like, we're 2 weeks in and I get that guilt panic. Do you guys
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about? I'm like, the house is
absolutely.
a mess. My kids have been using iPads. Like, it's, because we had stomach stuff, sensory kids. I mean, it's been crazy. I know,
Yeah.
but there's
The
this like
horrors.
guilt panic that like sets in, even though I know better, even
Right.
though I know we are totally fine. We've got plenty of time and space. We've been doing things here and there as we can. There is learning going on. My daughter last night actually found these. Do you guys remember these? The Disney how to draw books from back when we were
Yes.
kids.
Oh, yeah.
So I kept all of mine and she found them on the bookshelf randomly last night. And so she was like, I was dealing with brother's fever and this and that and whatever. And she had started working on those and she was bringing me these beautiful drawings. And she's like, maybe I want to be an animator. I'm like, awesome, right? Like things are
Yep.
happening.
Cool.
It's all good. I know that, but that
We're
guilt
learning.
panic
Things are
still
continuing.
sets in. And I have to, like, I was like stress cleaning yesterday. And I'm like, we're getting back on track. We're getting back on track. And then I had to stop and realize, like, no, like we don't, it doesn't need to happen right now. It's okay. But it's still just like a visceral reaction, I think, because of the culture that we live in, that it's like, you gotta get
That's
it
what I'm
going.
saying.
And like,
That's what took
like,
so long to get past.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
like
you
eight,
don't
nine
get the
years
guilt
in,
panic anymore, is what you're
no, not
saying.
even a little
Okay.
bit.
So there is light. It will go away.
No, like, because here's the thing when you have it, you have a couple choices, right? I
Yeah.
mean, thinking about the way our brains work, neuroplasticity, and all of the wonderful things that we can do with our minds. When you have that, if you go, okay, you know what? I feel bad, but it's okay. We're just going to push through. You're actually reinforcing to yourself that it's normal to feel guilty and that there's a reason to feel guilty, but you have to deal with it. That's not what I tell myself. I started telling myself, oh my gosh, you are so smart to have a plan for this. Y'all enjoy the day off. You planned ahead. You have time to work this out. Go you. And I felt so stupid the first few times I did that because I didn't believe it, but
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would like verbally process it to myself. I would say it to myself and I would tell the kids, oh my goodness, you guys, how cool is it that we school year round and we have the freedom to take a sick day and we're not going to have any makeup work.
Yeah.
We're just going to
Yep.
move on to the next thing the next time we do school. Isn't that awesome? And I'm telling them this and I'm not
You're telling
believing it,
yourself it.
right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
as I'm telling myself, and within a school year of doing that, by the time we're done, I'm like, oh man, we're so good. We're going to enjoy
Got
the
it.
sick day.
Yeah.
I love it.
So when I was doing, this is going to sound crazy coming from me, but this really hit home for me when I started doing just a little bit of writing down my homeschool plan, doing my long range plan like on paper. That's when I really started to see that we're good. We are totally good. If we need to take this sick day, if we need to do, because I saw it on paper that the planning was going to work out. And I think that because I had that just written down and I could look at it, I was like, okay, I'm confident. And we also school year round. I know my kids are going to, if they don't get it now, if we don't dive as deep as they want to dive in on this topic, if it was like the human body or plants or whatever, get it again. And, maybe we don't go as deep, but we can still go, for the rest of the time allotted. You make adjustments and you just stick to the plan as best as possible. And when I saw it written down and I had the plan and I knew that's when I knew it was gonna be okay. And I could give myself permission to take those days. When I wasn't doing this, my kids were a lot younger and it was more of a, we're sick. I had the flexibility and the creative thinking to just be like, oh, well, then we're just going to watch some cartoons that align with this. Like, so maybe we would watch like a bunch of Wild Kratts that day. And, we'd watch the Wild Kratts and the Octonauts and all of the, the cartoons that like fit our unit, Magic School Bus, when they're little, that's what we would do. And now, my kids just kind of like, if they're not feeling well, they just kind of like flop on the couch and watch a documentary. And so I'm like, I'm not mad about that,
My kids
like I am not
still
mad about that.
remember those weeks. Like my older ones,
Yeah.
they still talk about the week that we binge watched Liberty Kids.
Yeah.
And
I love
they
that
have
one.
no clue. It's because mama had hyperemesis and was
Yeah.
puking her guts out and couldn't function. I mean, I think I lost like 15 pounds that
Oh
week.
my gosh.
I felt like, or that, well, it was that month, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that week
It's
that we
rough.
started that. And I was sitting there and I moved the TV. So I was right next to the doorway to the half bathroom. So I could kind of like
Mhm.
sit in the bathroom and see the kids. And I would just sit there and I would get sick all day long. They remember none of that though, but they
Mhm.
remember that we did that. And they remember that I bought red, white, and blue snacks. So I think we had like strawberries and blueberries and can't remember what we did for white. I think it might have been yogurt covered raisins or something like that. And I had my husband bring them home from Walmart one day, and we just like did that for their snacks, put them in little, like my oldest put it in little bowls for everybody. And they remember it so well and so joyfully. And I think that it's one of the beauties of homeschooling is that even these sick weeks become really cool memories and they don't remember how sick I was or any of that. They just remember how much fun they had.
Because it was special. It
I
was a
love
They
it.
remember
special.
their sick day boxes, and Aiden's like, why did you, like, take that box back from us?" That's what you remember? It's like what you did when you were sick. And they're like, no, we just like thought it was like a special because day.
Hmm.
And so like these are our cherished childhood memories now, which I think is a really cool thing that we give our kids.
Yeah. 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 I think like you said, having the sick day boxes, we would use do you guys remember Osmo, the Osmo games?
Yeah,
The
I
we
think so.
had they connected to your iPad and then they were interactive. It was so cool. You could spell words and you could do math and
It
you
had,
could
like,
do,
letter tiles
yeah,
and
and had
things
little
attached to it, yeah.
manipulative things. It was so cool. So we would pull that kind of stuff out on the sick days, especially when it was me that was sick or when I was pregnant and not feeling well, or I was, I had just had a baby and I was not feeling well, and all of that. Those types of things are just so great to have as a go-to. Do you guys still have things on hand that
Mhm.
that you pull out? I'm sure it's changed, over the years because I don't pull out those toys anymore, but
My
I don't know.
kids get nostalgic. My 13-year-old pulled out our set of wooden tanagrams the other day
Oh yeah,
when one of
my
his siblings
6-year-old
wasn't
did too.
feeling well. And he was like, I'll play with you. And like just started building with it. And, I will say, I think this is important to note. What you pull out when mom is sick is different than what you pull out when the kids are sick because you do not
Yeah.
want to have to disinfect a box of Legos, right? Like that's
Yes.
just
Yes.
no thank you. And I did learn that
Yeah.
lesson the hard way because I gave them Legos during a stomach flu one time.
Man.
And I'm just saying, it like I have definitely learned discernment. We tend to do art projects when they're
Yeah.
sick
Okay.
because I can toss the cheap paintbrushes away. And it's really wasteful. But
Do
if
what you
they're
got to
really,
do.
really like
Yeah.
sick, I'm just like, you know what? Here we go. We do the watercolors. We play it when they're done with it, we throw the whole set out, and they've colored and we papered the kitchen with new wallpaper that they've
Mhm.
Mhm.
decorated with. But but they're happy and I don't have to, disinfect a box of Legos.
Yeah. Yep.
The Yodo player has become a big part of our our life in the last few
Yeah.
days
Smart.
too. Because
Mhm.
then when because when I have to be 100% focused on one kiddo for a bit, right? They whoever it is, my littlest one can make that work. They can go and they can adjust the Yodo player and put any book they want or music. So that's been helpful. And then cardboard is always a go-to for us. Having cardboard around,
Yes.
like I called my mom because they moved recently, but they still are, moving is like you end up with cardboard for 2 years, right?
It's awesome.
I called her. I was like, I need you guys to bring over a stack of cardboard. And so whichever kid has been well, because cardboard, that
Yeah.
can just vacate the premises once
Yep.
everybody is better. And it keeps people completely entertained. And then my kiddos, all we make time each week for them to explore a personal project. And so when we're having this time, I'm just letting them go, encouraging them, talking them through like going deep into those projects.
Hmm.
And so there's been a lot of stop motion movies made. There's been a lot of book writing, like, things that we've kind of integrated that we can expand on during this time. But even with that, I still spin out occasionally, but it's
Oh, yeah.
okay. But yeah, we've got those personal projects. I also, though, we've talked a little bit about pregnancy, but the other thing is like chronic illness. Have you guys ever
Yeah.
dealt with chronic illness? Because for some families, like whether it's a child with chronic illness or a parent with chronic illness, like this is not a once in a while, once a year kind of situation. This is something that you are dealing with and managing and talking through and working out regularly.
Right.
Have you guys been in those there dealt with that?
My mom got sick when I was in junior high and basically stayed either in a chair or a bed for the rest of her life
Mm.
from that point on. And so, and a lot of her things, she had multiple health issues. They're hereditary. This is actually something I've spent a lot of time thinking on as I'm facing health challenges in my 40s now, which is how old she was. And one thing is, for me as the kid, I was an avid book reader, and whenever she was up to it, like when she had a day out of the house, we would go to the library and stock up on books. And I was so thankful that she would do that. When I was old enough, I could ride my bike or walk there and bring home, like 10 at a time. But we're talking like we'd go and get like 30 or 40 when she was up to it, and it was wonderful. Although one time she wasn't up to getting me returning them, and I had to like bike right back and forth like multiple times
No.
in one day so I didn't have to pay the late fines. Um, but one of the things that I've done is I have made it a point to raise kids who are very independent, not in the
Mhm.
sense that they're parenting themselves, but that they, like, we call it notice and do. So, hey, what do you see that needs to be done? Okay, so I can trust you to handle that, right? Whether it's the next history assignment or, I drop my crumbs on the floor, I'm going to sweep them up really quick because I want to raise responsible adults. I'm not in the business of raising children that stay children. I want to raise
Mhm.
responsible adults. And so what has happened with that is that even when my health, like if I'm having a day that's rough, believe it or not, there's not that much that I need to go, oh gosh, this isn't going to get done because we're out of the baby season. We're out of the super little kid season. Anything that doesn't get taken care of, I've learned, 20 plus years of parenting, I've learned that it'll get done when we get to it, right? But all the essential things still happen. And that independence that I've given them means that we can get creative if we need to. So I have taught my kids internet safety, and I still don't let them like go exploring the internet for the heck of it. But I've taught them to type in YouTube video about blank for kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yesterday learned all about how pearls were made, and we just went down the list of videos that were made for children.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we clicked on those. And was I there? Yes. But was I supervising to help them learn how to make wise choices? Absolutely.
Mhm.
And they did great with it. So I think that when you're in those kinds of situations, it's what you do all the other times that
Mhm.
make those days okay. And the understanding of, my kids aren't going to remember that the house was dirty November 5th. right when they were in 3rd grade or whatever,
Yeah.
they're going to look back and go, oh my gosh, my mom loved me and I had a great, rich education and I am prepared to live my life and do what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I think the most important conversation that we need to have about that, especially chronic illness specifically, is don't major in the minors. When they
Mm.
look back at their childhood, what do you want them to remember? Chances are it's not the stuff you're obsessing over not being able to do right now. And that has been a huge lesson for me.
I love that that focuses on raising independent people. And something that we can give our, a gift we can give our kids is to teach our kids to care for others and to see the need and to do something about it with something that's already within their what they're able to do and what they're able to handle. So setting them up for success in adulthood, but allowing them to serve and be helpful even as children. So, making one of my kids loves cooking, and if I, like, put him in charge of dinner because of something that because of a need, he would definitely get it done, and, it might be pancakes, but, it would be dinner, so and actually it would probably be mac and cheese, let me just be honest. So, but I think that, with all of my kids, not just the ones that like to cook, but, I've got kids that love to help with other kids, and he doesn't always like helping with his siblings, but he's seen a need, with other families where the parent is overwhelmed and he has jumped in and played with the other kids to help that mom. You know what I mean? Like kids, if you could teach your kids to just like dive into their strengths and
Mhm.
what they're good at and use that to help people, that's going to set those kids up for just
Mhm.
just for so much success and just so much like just being able to serve others and the joy and blessings that come from doing that.
Absolutely. I think that sick days are fun. Like we start out, sometimes my kids don't know I'm sick. They're like,
Allie's
I'm like,
like,
no, no, no,
Not feeling
not
that right now, Lisa. Not feeling it.
not
2
tummy
weeks.
bug days. The tummy bug is not it. But for our kids, when we're sick, I
yes,
think that
yes.
they're sometimes fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're
The
great
hard part,
teaching opportunity or learning.
yes.
It's a different
Yeah.
kind of learning. It's a
Yeah.
different no matter what you do. Go ahead. I didn't mean
I'm
to
not talking
interrupt.
about when the kids are sick though,
Yeah,
Allie.
yeah.
But I mean, like when we're sick,
I
I think the
Yeah.
kids enjoy the change of pace sometimes.
Yeah.
And that has also helped relieve the mom guilt because my kids are like, wait, so what are we going to do today? I'm like, well, first of all, if you want to, you can stay in your pajamas as long as you want. As long as you don't sleep in them again. I always make them change them after dinner. Like they got to go in the laundry. But they're like, wait, like really? I'm like, yes, yes,
Yep.
have
It's
fun, less
the
laundry,
pajama day.
right?
Yeah.
And all I'm thinking about is like, that's a whole less load of laundry because there's so many of my kids.
And if someone does get sick on it, then
Yeah.
But,
Whatever.
like, we kinda start out and make it fun, and so we keep together when and I here's the different conversation is when everybody's sick, like Allie's dealing with right now, you just gotta throw your hands up and pray and just roll with it.
yep.
You
Take
know,
it day by
like, and
day.
that's
Yes.
okay.
I feel like the first week, we still had all these things going, right? Like, everyone had their things, we're doing it. This second week, I don't know. It's been a
Well,
lot,
you
but
lose
yeah.
steam. You can't
You
keep you
I say it's 2 weeks is a long time.
It's a long time, and I'm like,
yeah.
it's 24 hours a day, and I don't think I was trying to remember if I've left the house, because there's always been one kid who's sick who needs me, and I'm like, I don't think I've left the house outside of, like, getting them outside in the backyard to get some vitamin D, right?
Right.
Like, I don't think I've left the house in 2 weeks, so I'm going crazy here,
Well, and that's another
but
point to
it's a
consider
short
is
time.
yeah, that's another, point to consider is that especially like if we're talking about going back to chronic illness, taking care of
Mhm.
family members, or children with special need or aging parents, any of these types of things, when we're considering that, we have to take care of ourselves to,
Yeah,
first in order,
I was
put your
thinking that
own
too.
oxygen mask on before helping others. You really have
Yeah.
to prioritize your own health and your own well-being before you can just give to all these other. Do you guys have
Well,
anything
and what
to,
a
So
gift
what's your
it's
oxygen
such
max,
a
Rachel?
gift. Well, there we go.
what'd you say?
What's your oxygen mask? What does that
Mine?
look like for you? Yeah.
I'm going to let Allie say what she was saying. I don't know. Mine is like just being by myself. I go on a walk.
Like, no one
I need
touch
to
me,
like
no one talk to
when
me.
things get overwhelming and there's a lot going on, then I'm a big people person. I'm a big extrovert. I'm, all those things, but I will need time by myself. So, yeah, taking a
Yeah.
walk or just, I try not to shut myself like inside, but maybe go sit on the porch and get some sunlight and just go somewhere quiet, if I can get away to like a coffee shop or something. But yeah,
Yeah.
I stick my kids in childcare at the gym and go work out.
There you go. That's awesome. I love
But
that.
if they're sick, you
That's a good
can't do
tip.
that.
No, can't do that.
Yeah.
No, my kids are not going anywhere.
No.
But that's okay. We'll get there. It will be over soon. It's fine. But I was just gonna say that the taking care of ourselves, that is actually a gift for the kids as well.
Mm.
I come from a long line of overachievers and constant doers and
Mhm.
community highlighters and serving on all the boards, serving on all the things, and there's so much beauty that came from witnessing that as a child, and I absolutely love and adore all these incredible women in my life and in my lineage, but all of them now have had some point hit a point where they realized that they had to figure out how not to be all
Mm.
that all the time
Yeah.
and take care of themselves. And unfortunately, for most of them, that was a health crisis that resulted in the need for that. So I think what you're saying about like putting your oxygen mask on, and you know what, guys, I've been doing so good with that until these last 2 weeks. But vomit and like, sorry, you don't
You
even need to
know.
know.
That's
But I'm like, I
the
am just
worst,
in
though.
I sent a message to these two ladies the other day, and I'm like, there is something about constantly cleaning and not having your house get cleaner that is demoralizing. It's like the worst. So, I mean, but I have really been trying to be intentional in our generalized life of going for a walk, of taking time to do gratitude and pray, and, like taking time for myself and slowing life down. And I actually do have I have a chronic degenerative illness, and at times it really has been a difficult thing to live
Mm.
with, and it has impacted our lives greatly. I have been blessed that I've been able to work really hard to get myself to a good spot. But I also know, because when I was younger, they said by the time I was this age that I would be bound to a wheelchair, and I have not done that.
Wow.
I don't intend on doing that.
That's
Mhm.
amazing.
But, we having that in my head, kind of like Lisa, like you were saying, just knowing that um that's a part of the story here. And even though I keep fighting against it, and I will keep fighting, and I will do everything in my power to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can, it is something that's always been woven into the actual planning and setup of our homeschool. I choose things knowing that this is a potential shoe that could drop, and
Mm.
that I need to have things in place or choose things that are, in their very nature of choosing, are being kind to myself and my kids. And I think that's like, there's a reality to, if you are a family, this is where the whole like looking out on social media and seeing what everyone's doing and trying to like bring it into yourself becomes
Mm.
such a hot mess, right?
Mhm.
Because we end up setting ourselves up in situations where we're not taking into account the reality of life. So when we start with, hey, this is where we're at, this is a baseline, this is what could potentially happen, and we're like, okay, this is where we want to be, how can we meet that while still being kind and having space for ourselves in this season, this way of life, I think is a really important thing. I think when people dealing with chronic illness, oftentimes, have you guys ever heard of spoon theory?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give a quick rundown, because I actually think spoon theory goes beyond chronic illness. I think this is something
Mm.
that moms in general need to be aware of. But the idea is that everybody has a set of spoons every morning. And every morning you wake up and you've got a set of spoons. And everything that you do, taking a shower, getting changed, making breakfast, teaching fractions, whatever it is, takes a certain amount of spoons.
Right.
Some people with chronic illness have less spoons starting their day. than people who don't. But a mom who has had young children for 5 years and hasn't had a good night's sleep has less spoons than the mom who is in that middle season before the teenagers are keeping you up at night, right? Where she's getting sleep. There's different amount of spoons. And so
Right.
I think with all of this, like, yes, there are the surprises and we have backup plans for that. But I think if you know that you're in that season of you've got chronic illness, you're pregnant, you're nursing a new baby, whatever it is, there's a reality of just recognizing that and making choices that are loving to yourself and your family in that season. Don't pick the 3,000 page curriculum that requires you to prep it every Sunday night and get all the
Mm.
things out. Don't
Mhm.
choose the thing that requires you to read aloud for 5 hours a day. Don't
Right.
Oh my
choose
gosh,
the
yes, don't do
thing,
that.
but I mean, like, don't choose the things that are going to take more spoons than you have to offer. I
Right.
think it, I
Mhm.
think you can still have an incredibly rich and beautiful. I mean, look at Liberty Kids and red, white, and blue snacks, right?
Right.
That ended up
So
being a
memorable.
rich, rich educational experience. Well, in Liberty Kids, like, you learn a lot in there. You learn
Oh,
names of
yeah.
Yo, they're
places. It's
great.
fabulous.
And we did it alongside our curriculum too. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like, and so my kids were like, there's, Miles
My
Standish.
kids love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Like, I
Yeah.
love it. So I'm always like, can we watch Liberty Kids?
It's great.
But you
I'm
can have
down.
such a rich and beautiful education and homeschooling experience. You don't have to do the thing that is taking more spoons than you've got.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's like,
finding like the spoon swaps. Ooh, can we call them spoon swaps? Like
I
there's,
like it.
maybe in your in whatever, like let's say you did have a curriculum because I know I've done this when I had young kids, I was in that drowning phase, when I had babies and toddlers and why
We make it
you'll
sound so appealing, don't we?
I know.
It
Have
is
drowning
appealing and
season.
wonderful. It's wonderful. It's
It was great, but
amazing.
I
It's
was
all the
I mean
good
there
things,
was
but it's a lot.
yeah. Yeah, and there's phases that you go through and I'm in a really great phase right now and I don't feel like I'm drowning right now. But there were a few years where I didn't know if it was going to, if we were going to survive it. But, like the curriculum was, telling me to go do these things that were going to cost a lot of spoons, and I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to do this that's going to be like no spoons, and I
Mhm.
just swap it's the same educational learning experience, but it was like way easier on me. And so instead of, doing, I don't know, like whatever it was, instead of doing this big project on let's just say it was on, the American Revolution, like instead of doing this big hands-on project where we're building all those things, maybe we're watching Liberty Kids, and I'm allowing them to be immersed in the story and then they can go like play on their own and play as those characters. So instead of building that, they're imaginative playing. It's still incorporating play, it's still incorporating all of the same learning objectives, but just in a way that costs fewer spoons for the mama that needs
I think
that needs
one thing that the reason I asked you is like, what's your oxygen mask? I think as
yeah.
moms, even in all of this, we're talking about what the kids get out of it, which is why we homeschool. It is about the kids, right? But so many times we forget to think about what actually makes us feel refreshed.
Mhm.
Like I
Totally.
can think of a time when a friend came over and said, "Hey, I'm gonna go do your laundry for you. Why don't you go for a walk?" And it was
What a
really
blessing.
sweet. But I gotta tell you, I didn't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because you
I
get in the
wanted to stay
muck.
home and tend
You're
my
right.
house. Like, I wanted to, like, fold my own laundry
Mm.
and have her take the kids for a walk. Like, I wanted to
Mhm.
sit in the quiet house. And, it was like, huh, it was the most unfulfilling gift anybody had ever given me, and it was such a sweet
Wow.
gift. Such a sweet gift that she came over and did the laundry, and I took the kids for a walk. But I was so tired and so run down that I wish she had said, "Hey, I've got an hour. Would you like me to do the laundry for you? Or is there something else I can do?"
Mm.
And later, I actually expressed that to that friend because she had just said, Was that a blessing?" Like, I was trying to like do something. I said, "Actually, I was so tired that after I walked them, I had nothing left to give them the rest of the day."
Mhm.
and like it used up the last of my energy. So
Interesting.
no, it really wasn't that big of a blessing. I was at the end of a pregnancy. It was the pregnancy where I'd been sick for 9 months straight.
Yeah.
And that took the last little bit. And she's like, oh, and so my next pregnancy she was so sweet. She came over, she's like, I'd like to be a blessing. What would bless you?
Nice.
And I think that as moms, we need to be aware of what we need because sometimes we think that what we need is what other people tell us that we should need,
Mhm.
right? Like whether it's a TikTok or an Instagram reel or a blog post or an email that we've read or a devotional that we're reading and good moms do this for their kids or you should feel this way or whatever. And
Mm.
I think being self-aware and knowing how you feel in any given situation is really important. I have 3 adult children now. And if I were to show up for each of them when they were sick, I would show up 3 very, very different ways,
Yeah.
right?
Because
Because
you've
they each
learned
need different things.
and you've learned what your kids need in those
But I don't
situations,
always think
and you
about
don't
what I need,
exactly.
right? And I have
Exactly.
to tap into that. And that's we need to be students of ourselves, not just of our children.
Yeah.
And to me, this is really important because I did not take care of myself the first half of my parenting journey. And so my adult children have been watching me learn how to care for myself so that I can better show up for their younger siblings. And I got to watch my daughter the other day. She's in her 20s. And she said, so, hey, I'm going to go away for a few days. And I said, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And she said, what do you mean, what's wrong? And I was like, well, what's wrong? Why are you going away? She goes, I just want to rest. Like nothing's wrong. And I want to keep it that way. I'm tired. I can
Yeah.
feel myself getting stressed. I've got some stuff. I just want a quiet space. So I'm going to go find a quiet space away from the 9 other people I live with all the time. And I'm just going to rest, And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool. Have fun. And she
Yeah.
came back so refreshed. And I was like, I'm so glad you need to do that. And she's like, what do you mean you do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, but it's only been like the last third of my parenting journey where my husband, like a couple times a year, will say, hey, why don't you go find a hotel room or go away with a girlfriend somewhere? And
Mhm.
because I'm such an introvert, I have another introverted friend. We'll go sit there and be quiet together. Like we'll like talk to each other on the drive and then and then talk on the drive home. But it works for us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I haven't been able to do stuff like that until like the last 3 years. And that has been so
but I
nice.
wish that I had taken care of
Yeah.
myself before that. Instead of thinking, oh, I need 3 days away, but I can't get it, so I'm not going to do
Mhm.
anything. I wish that I had learned to say, but I can take an hour or I can take
Do
30
something.
minutes and I can practice some deep breathing or I can read a book. Because did y'all know that reading a fiction book for 11 minutes can reduce stress by up as much as 60%?
Well, it takes
No,
you
I did
somewhere
not.
it takes you
Yes.
somewhere different. It
Yes.
takes you
It's
it's
amazing.
it's like a
Did not.
vacation. I didn't know that statistic.
60%.
That's really amazing. Like,
When my kids get stressed, I now hand them their book and I'm like, go read 20 minutes. Don't come back until you've been reading for 20 minutes. And they come
that's
back, they're like,
really
oh, thank you so
interesting.
much.
I love that statistic. I think that it's important that we have that when we're feeling well or when we're not, because sometimes it's easier to see like what I would really need right now is and like,
Hang
you
on.
know,
I just
have
pulled
a
up the mean. It's
list.
6
Yes.
minutes. It's 6 minutes. Reduces it by 60%.
Whoa.
Wow.
6 minutes
So
and it's
I must have just made it
60%.
bigger for myself. Yep. I just pulled up my meme.
I could go read for 6 minutes. If you do 12
Dr.
minutes.
David Lewis. Let's give him credit.
Are you getting 120%
I know.
stress reduction?
That's awesome. Who was it?
Uh,
Who said
that
that?
is
Dr. David Lewis.
Okay. There you go.
My new
Get
hero.
yourself a good
But
fiction book.
there you go.
I love reading and I love that it's just the 6 minutes because sometimes when you are having, you've got sick kids, you've got some chronic illness, you're just stressed, whatever it is, 6 minutes, that could really help you a lot.
just thinking I could lock the bathroom door for that long.
I mean,
Right? That's
my
what I'm
Kindle
like, wait a minute. All right. Yeah, there you go. You can do that.
mhm.
I
Yep.
need to get my husband has been trying to get me to read fiction again for the longest time because I'm always reading
Yeah.
all the learning books, just like constant learning, research, learning, research. They actually got me one recently and I started reading it. I'm like, okay, 6 minutes. I will read that for 6 minutes today. I'm making that my goal.
There you go. There
I'm
you
going to do
go.
it. I love
Yeah.
it.
I think that all of us need to go and just like reflect and think about those non-negotiables, those things that like small things that we can do, like read for 6 minutes or make yourself a cup of tea or go on a walk or something like that that can help you.
The first time I was ever thankful for the privilege of taking a shower that day, I was like,
Mm,
my life has to change.
yeah.
Like, I had 3
Yeah.
little kids, and I was talking with a friend, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, today's been, like, the best day ever," and she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Can you believe it? I got a shower," and she was like I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah, that," but, and I meant I had had time to wash my hair and my body in the same
Yeah.
shower,
It wasn't
right?
like a jump in, jump out. Okay, good. I don't
Right, it
stink
And
wasn't like
shower. It
you know
was
what I mean? But
and no one
yeah.
came in on you. Like
that's what
nobody
I
needed
meant,
you.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I
You weren't
realized
playing
that
playing boats while you were trying to shower.
Right.
sometimes that's self-care.
Yeah.
The other
Definitely one
day, my
time
kids were
Absolutely.
when I
like,
had
"You're
a
so cheerful," and I'm like, hair washed, makeup on, both legs shaved the same day, and my sons were
that's
like, "Too much information."
You're like,
I
no,
was like,
know this now so your wife gets a shower where she can shave her legs every day.
but I was like, my husband got up, the kids all slept in, he was with them, and it was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna start the second leg and hope
living
for
on the
the
wild
best."
side.
And nobody knocked on the door, and I was like, "Oh,
Woo.
yeah, we're entering a new season of life."
Yeah.
Like, that was, like, my big wake-up call, like, we have shifted out of having little kids now.
Mm. Yeah.
Not there
But
yet,
all
but we'll get
joking
there. We'll
aside,
get there.
we talk about, like, I can
Yeah.
go away for a couple days twice a year now, but the reality is most days I'm just so thankful if I can shave and wash my hair in the same shower
Yeah.
without
There's a
without company.
what is the Kendra Adachi book? Oh, I can't think of it, but she
Lazy
talks about
genius?
that. Yeah, the lazy genius way. Yeah. And how, she talks about that like taking an hour or taking, going away for an afternoon once a week or just taking that time. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I read the book, so I can't remember the specifics. But that book is really good about finding ways of carving out time and carving out just ways of making things that you have to do in your life and making time for it in a lazy genius sort of way. So that's
I've taught
that
my
was
kids her framework.
yeah.
Like, here's my problem. Here's the solution I'm looking for. What matters in the solution and what doesn't matter in the solution. I mean,
Mhm.
y'all have got to read the book if you haven't,
Yeah.
because there is something. Because what I always tell my kids, they're like, "Mom, I need help. I have a problem." And I'm like, "Okay, but come to me with solutions.
Mm.
Don't come to me with problems. Your solutions could be like horrible, but like get the ball rolling. Let's start down the solution path and then we'll go." And I love her question because what matters and what doesn't helps you align your values with the solution.
Mm.
And that's actually how we started our sick day thing long before I'd ever heard of the lazy genius way. And her way helped us refine it. But it was like, okay, what matters to me when that my kids have when I'm sick and what doesn't matter? What doesn't matter so much might be screen time,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't watch TV, but we binge watch Liberty Kids. Like I was down
Yeah.
with that. What did matter is that my kids felt loved, that they didn't feel like they were doing without mom, and that they were well nourished. And
Mhm.
well nourished was an adjustable
It's a
definition,
scale.
right?
Yeah.
Like they had 3 meals that day and they weren't
Yes.
hungry.
Right.
Mhm.
And that was what mattered. What didn't was how complex or how many check marks we had on our daily schedule. What didn't matter was the amount of time they were on the screen. And what didn't matter was if they were like well groomed and in fresh clothes or anything like that. It was like, have a pajama day, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was a really good framework for our sick days.
I love that. Any last
Good.
thoughts, Allie?
Since you're in it,
Yeah.
I'm in it. I think well, I know all of these things. I implement all of these things
Mhm.
and I just kind of hit a threshold at like day 10.
Mhm.
Like it just, I got to day 10 and I'm like, ah. So one of the things that I've been doing for myself lately is every morning, writing down 10 things I'm grateful for and writing, I am grateful for 10 things. And well,
not
it's
even
a good
3. I love
mindset
it.
shift.
10.
No,
Mhm.
I do 10 things and it's not always easy to come up with, which has been kind of like a heart check for me as well. But I think there are also times where it's okay that like the wheels fell off and you do feel like it's too much. And it's like, I just, even implementing strategies, having backup plans, having all the things, like sometimes it just all falls apart. Like it just does.
Well,
And
and
that's
it
okay too.
eventually
And we
will,
can,
you know,
it'll get back on track.
or
Yeah.
you make a new plan because like if
Yeah.
like this stomach bug issue is going to resolve, it's not going to go on for 4, 8,
Yeah.
10, 12 weeks, right? You're at the light of the end of the tunnel. But
You hope.
sometimes you embark on these, there's big things that happen. There's big sicknesses that come in.
Yeah.
There's life-changing things. And that's when you maybe 10 days in, the wheels fall off and you don't say, "Oh, it's going to get better." No, you build something new and you get into a different vehicle and you go a different route and you make a change, that's going to support you in your next season. So, I mean, that's going back to, the just this short-term sickness thing versus like a chronic. But yeah, 10 days in that's a good time. That's a good long time for your plan to
To
last.
be implementing. Yeah.
It really is. And then if the next, 3, 4, 7 days are, a wash, whatever,
We'll
you're
start over.
fine.
We'll start over.
You'll
Yeah. We'll start over
exactly.
again. But I am realizing that the last, like when the wheels fell off at 10 days, I didn't do my gratitude every morning.
Mm,
And and I'm like, you know what? It feels so like the 6 minutes of reading that is going to stick with me in, yes, I'm going to do it, but also just in the reminder that it is those drops in the bucket that can help keep it up even when you've got a hole at the bottom. And like,
mm,
I just, when I'm feeling so overwhelmed, stress cleaning is probably not going to solve it because it didn't. But going back to gratitude and finding 6 minutes to read a fun book, like those drops are going to be what keeps going. And so I think that like, that's my takeaway from our conversation today is just that like, I let go of the drops because I got overwhelmed, but I think the only way through is to keep getting those drops in the bucket. So I hope that everybody listening has picked up 1 or 2 drops that they can keep in their pocket and get going because I think that it makes a bigger difference than we realize in the moment.
So
absolutely.
I'll be like the numbers geek here. There are 1,440 minutes in a day. 6 minutes is less than half of a percent of a 24-hour day. It takes so little time to care for ourselves. And we have I have a soapbox. I'm going to try not to step on it for more than like 30 seconds. We have bought this Instagram lie that we need the cozy chair with the blanket and the aesthetic little basket filled with journals and this whole ritual
Mhm,
to have self-care in the morning before our kids wake up. Or or we need like the perfect cup of tea and the right shoes like that are fluffy and cozy and the right sweater and scarf to have this like little hygge moment in the evening. And it's just not true. 0.5% of your day to reduce your stress by 60%. Imagine if you took time to do that 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, 18
mm,
minutes, a
mhm.
total of 1.5% of your day
Yeah.
to ground yourself because it's not about being selfish and saying, I'm taking those 6 minutes for myself. What if you gave your kids and your family and yourself that gift of that 6 minutes as anchor points throughout the day? Like, that would change so much. And I have a feeling that we'd all get a lot less sick if we
Mm,
had less stress and we were better cared for when it hit because we'd have more resistance to fight it.
yeah. I love that. Well, let us know on our socials what your go-to is, what your go-to thing to do on sick days. We would love to hear from you if you've got some other ideas that we didn't mention, or if something that we talked about today really stuck out to you and you're going to try on your next sick day. If you are currently going through it, I'm so sorry, and we our prayers are with you, and hoping that this is a short season and you get through it. I know Allie is glad to be seeing the light at the end of her family's sickness tunnel here. But we wish you all the best, and we will see you here again next time on the Homeschool Perspective podcast.